episode 69. We are here for what is the final roster cut down for the 2019 Seahawks. We've got the final roster.
Sorry, Brian. I missed it. What episode are we on?
A very nice episode, 69.
Hmm.
That's just for you, Nathan. And we'll go through each of the roster spots, some of the surprise cuts, what they mean, what we think. And we will go through each game of the regular season and give each of our predictions. We hope to have our buddy Real Jeff Simmons join us. He's tending to some family stuff right now. And if he can, he'll join a little bit later. If not, you got the three of us, and hopefully that's enough. And the three of us is myself, Brian Nemhauser at Hawk Blogger, Evan Hill at Evan Hill SEA on Twitter. Hey there, Evan.
Hey.
And last but certainly not least, Nathan Ernst at Nathan E11. More likely to predict 11 losses on the season than he is to predict 11 wins. We will soon find out. How you doing, dude?
It's all dependent on whether they go ahead and sign Alex McGough.
I figured that was a critical, pivotal move in your mind. We'll see what happens. All right, so let's start with just off the cuff. We talked about Jadeveon Clowney this morning. Obviously we'll probably talk about that a little bit more. I do want to set one thing clear before, just get some top of the mind reactions from you guys. So right now the Seahawks have Barkevious Mingo and Jacob Martin on the roster. The Jadeveon Clowney move has not finalized yet. So there's two players on the roster. Clowney is not on their roster yet, who will not be on their roster, hopefully, in a matter of hours once all the players pass their physicals. When that becomes the case, the Seahawks will have an open roster spot. So there's one player that is not on the roster that will be. And that's a confusing little change from what we normally deal with, but that's what one of the key details to understand. So with that out of the way, Nathan, tell me what Nathan is absolutely failing with his custom backgrounds. I think he's trying to get
great. I'm doing great.
I don't know why mine work and no one else's do. I think maybe I just have a uniquely non-green screened face. So Nathan, what were your reactions, top reactions when you saw the cuts announced for the Seahawks?
I mean, honestly, when I saw the official cuts announced, my first reaction was, oh my God, go get Alex McGough. It's crazy that they cut Geno. I didn't see that coming at all. I tweeted out my predictions, and I always do locks and safe and probably and bubble. And I think 6 or 7 safe guys. Geno might have even been a lock. I don't know. So, there was a ton of surprises throughout the day. I was really surprised about Marsh. I was really surprised about John Brown, even though I think that was definitely the right thing to do. But yeah, no, go get Alex McGough. You need a backup quarterback. There's an amazing one sitting right there for you. Go get him.
All right. Evan, do you have any similar feelings about Alex McGough? I mean, do you have any feelings at all about Alex McGough?
I'm not wildly emotionally passionate about him like Nathan Ernst is. He's a replaceable player. I mean, he's fine. Sure, sign him.
So replaceable that they don't even have a backup quarterback on the roster. Let's just be honest, there's been a void, a gaping hole at backup quarterback since they cut Alex McGough last year.
Didn't Gartner Minshew or something like that beat out Alex McGough?
I don't know.
He did. Yes, he did.
I don't think that's true. I don't think Minshew made the team.
He did. He's the backup.
I will say it's very weird, venturing over into Jaguars Twitter, because apparently there's a passionate debate about whether McGough or Minshew are better, and I'm extremely torn because I love them both not quite equally. I'm definitely team McGough, but I also like Minshew, and we can just agree that they're both very cool and we like them. I think that's good.
Yeah, I would be fine if they signed McGough. I don't really have. I'm in Evans' camp. I don't really care that much.
If Russell goes down, we're screwed regardless. So I guess if you want to go, but actually they should though.
Yeah,
well, they don't have to do it now. I mean, Yeah.
But if the price is right, they should. Purely from a football perspective,
sure. So what were your reactions when you saw the cuts announced, Evan? Anything jump out to you?
Yeah, the big one is the Jerron Brown one. Coaching staff has been hyping him up for really a year and a half now. Brian Schottenheimer has been, praising his praises all training camp and saying we can't wait to get him super involved this year. So part of me wonders, let me back up. I think it's the correct decision from a salary cap perspective and probably from a roster construction perspective. But there were some rumors floating around that they needed to do that to fit Clowney under their cap space, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because they were under the cap by a pretty significant threshold going into the day. They were close to 20 million when they traded for Clowney and they, offloaded Mingo's salary and Jacob Martin's salary. The net cost for Clowney for 2019 is going to be $11 to $12 million. So you see, just doing the simple math there's an $9 million gap. Cutting Jerron Brown saves a couple $1 million. I think it's 2.75 or something like that. Maybe there's a trade that's unannounced and is still coming. Maybe it's a veteran with a bigger salary or something like that. But that cut is weird to me. I still don't understand it.
Yeah, someone was saying that it may have something to do with Ansa's. Is that what you were just talking about? Ansa's contract, and that he's got some incentives that are not yet accounted for in the cap for once he starts playing games.
The way that works is it's $4 to $6 million in 2019 incentives that are counted as not likely to be earned incentives. And the way that works against the cap is if he earns them, it's actually adjusted against the 2020 cap. So to be quite honest, it really doesn't impact this year. It wouldn't make any sense.
So as far as you know, there's not a logical reason why they had to cut Jerron Brown or Cassius Marsh or anyone else for cap purposes.
The wild card here is if a big in-house extension is coming, whether it be Ifedi, somebody who would take up additional cap space. So I think the two possible scenarios to answer your question are a veteran trade coming or somebody with a bigger salary, basically, or an in-house extension. The latter is very possible.
Do the Seahawks gain any cap space with Jarran Reed being suspended for 6 games?
Yeah, so whatever his base salary is, it's very small because he's on a rookie contract. He's making a couple $1 million this year. Basically, he misses 6 game checks. So the Seahawks recover that cap space at 1/16 of his base salary of those 6 weeks, if that makes sense.
It is weird. I don't get the cap part. And so let's do this, guys. Let's run through. For me, the biggest surprise of the cuts, honestly, was Jacob Hollister. I really thought he was going to make it. The fact that Ed Dixon's on the roster and Jacob Hollister is not was pretty surprising to me. It sounds like Ed Dixon is weeks away from even coming back to start running and practicing. So perhaps they have him on the 53 and they're going to put him on IR tomorrow. And then they'll re-sign a tight end. It could be Hollister. It could be someone else. But, Hollister was consistently targeted throughout training camp and made plays. And I thought what he did not do well is block. He's not a big dude, but that's not kind of his forte. That's not what you bring him in for. So maybe the Seahawks maybe they just can't have a guy that's not a blocker. But then I wonder why they had, Nick Vannett all these years, who really has not been that good of a blocker either. So,
I feel like that's a little generous. Hollister had some bad drops and stuff.
He had some bad drops. I think he had 1.
I feel like I remember 2, but he definitely had 1. I don't know, with maybe in practice more than in the games, but I didn't feel like he didn't seem like this super dynamic receiver. He was a bad blocker, and I don't know what you were really getting out of him as a receiver that was that special. So I don't know. I never quite got the hype on Hollister. I got the idea, but I didn't really see it in practice, and so that one just wasn't super surprising to me.
And I'm sorry, just quick news while it's breaking right now. Seahawks. No, the Seahawks are confirmed. They're attempting to re-sign Geno. Once he's so
that's awful. Really though, like it doesn't have to be Alex Smith, but like there's Kyle Slaughter, I think is his name. He's out there. There are other like younger.
Take those guys over Geno.
Why not? Like, what are you winning?
Really?
What are you winning with Geno?
What are you winning with those dudes?
Maybe you find something. Maybe you find a diamond in the rough. Like you know what Geno is. You're gonna lose with Geno. You're gonna lose with Alex Magoo. You're gonna lose with somebody else. But like, why not find somebody that's a little younger that maybe you can coach and like? Don't you have this great coach and like Shoddy, who's supposed to be a Mr. Accountability and quarterback coach and teach him up and no, but like really, like isn't that part of like what his appeal is supposed to be? So like, why not give him somebody to work with?
Yeah, it really comes down
to big deal.
They believe that Magoo has meaningful upside, and considering they kept guys like Trayvon Boykin and Josh Portis in past years, I don't think they think very highly of Magoo. I think that's what it comes down to. And otherwise, you're right, Nathan. I think they have shown that they'll keep a young guy and try to develop him, but I just don't think they see it.
Magoo, right? There are other guys out there too. Right?
Well, the guy I like is it Sloter?
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah.
He's impressive every time I've seen him. He looks like a guy. He's not mobile necessarily, but he looked like a super competent quarterback. So, I mean, whatever. Do we really want to spend this much time on the quarterback spot? I personally don't. I'm happy to be quiet and let you guys talk about it for a while if you do. But I mean, when's the last time a backup quarterback played for the Seahawks? And if he does play, what is it going to mean for the Seahawks? Like bad stuff. So. Alex Magoo, I hope for your sake, Nathan, that it works out, but I don't really care.
Why don't we just start at the top and go position by position?
That's what I'm going to do. So here's what I'm going to do, guys, and let me know if this helps. Look, we're going to go – this is a messy-looking spreadsheet, but hopefully you can see some of this.
Oh, beautiful.
Right? You love these bright colors. So Russell Wilson, no surprises there, right? Running back, we've got Carson, we've got Penny, we've got Travis Homer, and we've got C.J. Prosise. What's this last guy's name? CJ Prosise.
Congratulations, everyone. Congratulations. CJ Prosise was healthy for a consecutive 11 days. We'll see if he makes it to 12. Congratulations. Super excited about his contributions this year.
Here's the thing. As much of a CJ Prosise supporter as I am and believer in his talents, which I think he's proven again, he seriously has, I get it. I very much understand everyone's frustration with him making the roster, the people that are frustrated, especially you, Evan. But there is a flip side. It is the lesser of the probabilities. I will admit, it is not probable that he will be healthy for the full season or even for many games. I mean, let's just be totally honest. But if he is, if somehow he becomes a player that they can depend on, they've added a major piece to this offense that nobody was counting on and nobody in the league has accounted for. So I think he is significantly better and more dangerous than Rashad Penny is, and probably more dangerous than Rashad Penny will ever be. And that's both as a runner and as a receiver, and he's a better pass blocker in blitz pickup. So I think he's a real threat as a third down back, and you know, let's cross our fingers and hope it works out. There's no reason to bet against a guy that's on the team.
What do you think his contributions are going to look like on a healthy game day? Like how many snaps, how many carries is he getting?
You know, I'm really, really hoping they cut J.D. McKissick. So, you know, they cut J.D. McKissick, who could have been a third down back. They've been playing Chris Carson and sometimes Rashad Penny as third down backs in the preseason. Don't know what they're going to do during the regular season, but it's possible part of how they're going to get Chris Carson his pass targets that they've talked about, the 42 targets that Mike Davis got last year as a third down back, is that Carson's going to be more of a 3-down back than he has been in the past. So I don't know. I would like to think that Prosise is the third down back and the 2-minute back, and that he gets 5 to 8 carries a game and, you know, 2 to 4 targets a game, like something like 1 to 3 targets a game, something like that. I mean, I know that those are small numbers, but That's pretty typical for like a third down back. So that's what I would hope, and I think he would do a lot with those. Nathan, do you have any different point of view there?
Either running back.
All right. So Travis Homer also makes it. That's a little bit of a surprise, but he's a decent player and a good special teams player. So
how does this work? Does it work? Like,
I don't know why it works for me. You've got it like inversed into your body now. It's so cool.
I like stand up. Hey, look, it's the Cox meme. All right.
Yeah, we got to figure it out. Maybe I'm on a Mac. Maybe you guys are on a PC. I don't know. So wide receiver. Let's move over to wide receiver. So they keep 4 running backs, and they keep 6 wide receivers. So they cut Jerron Brown. They keep Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, David Moore, Malik Turner, Gary Jennings, and John Ursua. I will start by saying I'm a little bit more nervous about our bet that we made around who's going to get the second most targets on the team. Jerron Brown definitely was part of who I thought was going to be getting targets, and he's not there anymore. I've got to hang my luck on hopefully that David Moore gets back soon and that he has a great season. And potentially, hopefully, maybe John Ursua really rockets up the charts and steals some targets. Otherwise, DK Metcalf as second most targeted receiver looks like a far higher likelihood than it had been a few weeks ago.
Kiss your retirement funds goodbye, because I'm going to order so many goddamn Cadillac margaritas on you. I cannot wait.
I can handle it. I will be okay. This is one of those bets where I win either way. Those are my favorite types of bets to make. For those that don't know, I bet Nathan, Evan, Will, and Joe Fan on Twitter that DK Metcalf will be 3rd or below in targets for the Seahawks with receivers this year, just for the receivers. And definitely was counting on Jerron Brown and David Moore being higher up there. And one of them's injured and the other one's not on the team. So that's going to be interesting. Week one. Who are the top 3 receivers? Assuming David Moore cannot play week 1. We don't know yet about DK Metcalf. Are you guys betting DK Metcalf plays? Let's do this. If DK Metcalf can't play, let's do that. Who are the top 3 receivers in 8 days? Tyler Lockett.
Disley.
No.
No. It's probably Lockett, Jennings, and Ursua.
No way.
No.
Yeah.
No.
There's no way Malik Turner is starting over Jennings.
100%. He started over.
No, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way.
Why is there no way?
Jennings does not. Yeah. Why is there no way?
Because he made the roster based off of draft status. They still want to see what he can do. There's just no way. He's living off of draft value right now. I'm not saying it's the correct decision.
That's like the inverse logic. He's on the roster because of his draft value. He's not going to play because Amara Darboh was on the roster for draft value. He didn't play.
I'm not saying it's the correct decision. I'm just saying I think that's what's going to happen.
No, I don't think so. They're keeping him because of draft status, but they're not going to play him because of draft status. And I mean, honestly, let's not get too carried away with the draft status here. It's a 4th round pick. Yeah, you don't want to throw it away for nothing, but he's not a 1st rounder or something. This dude could be gone in by the end of the day, to be honest, depending on other cuts and stuff.
Is it just me, or did you put some voice filter on? You sound a little different, Nathan.
Does it sound weird? I don't know. No.
Yeah, you sound very different.
sounds kind of awesome. I think I'm pretty sure, and I think Nathan and I are in the same boat. I think that it's Tyler Lockett, Malik Turner, and I would go with John Ursua. I think Malik Turner. Pete said it. Malik Turner can play any of the receiver positions and can run all of the routes. Gary Jennings cannot do that. He just can't. He's still catching up. So I don't think he's game ready. I don't think they trust him yet. And I think John Ursua, what you have is Tyler Lockett plays outside, Turner plays outside, and Ursua is your slot. I think that's what you'd start with. If they do have DK Metcalf, then I think it's probably Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Malik Turner. I still think Malik Turner plays next week, whether Metcalf's healthy or not.
Well, we're really going to be able to test the theory that if Russell Wilson has a competent line, he can throw to any receiver. So we're about to find out.
Is that a theory?
We've been discussing that for several years, that like pass protection is way more important than receiver quality. I think this situation will allow for the testing of that hypothesis.
Well, I would say two things. One, I think that we, like, at least from an analytics perspective, I think the wide receiver is one of the positions that's gained importance. When you talk about some positions not mattering as much.
Nathan, your voice is so deep right now.
It's cracking me up. It's like hilarious.
I don't know what happened. You're like,
it's not like one of those people that are like on the police like voice modulators.
Really?
So, my voice is a little bit lower. It's like the it's actually the guy from Saw is what you sound like.
Oh, that's good.
This is amazing. Never change this. Whatever you're doing.
Whatever. It's good.
But no, like, there's a difference between like he can throw.
I can't handle this. You gotta go back and listen to yourself.
I feel like Gary Jennings is pushing the limits of but anyways, go on.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sorry at all. Oh my God. So you may want to, call back in, but otherwise keep going because it's really awesome.
Nathan, oh shit. Somebody in the chat was like, have him say, do you want to play a game?
I was like, for a little while, I was like, am I hearing something?
I thought I was going insane.
Because it just changed. It wasn't like that at the start.
It was like all of a sudden, Nathan, say something.
Nathan?
I'm terrified to speak.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, you're back to normal.
Oh my God, that was the best. I hope
Nathan, right before you left, Nathan, somebody in the chat was like, have him say, do you want to play a game? Opportunity. So
all right, you were trying to say something and I couldn't help handle it. So what were you saying?
It's not important.
Move on. All right, moving on. So that's receiver. Tight end. We've only got 2 tight ends that can play unless George Fant can play. So Disley and Vanette. That's the only guys healthy for next week. Ed Dixon makes the roster. I'm guessing that they're going to put him on IR and have him eligible to come back. Is that what you guys are assuming, or do you think they're going to just keep him as a dead roster spot until he gets healthy in 4 weeks or 5 weeks?
I have a weird hunch they want to keep him all year long. I know we could cut him and, probably agree to a minor injury settlement, but I feel like they have an odd attraction to Ed Dixon.
Well, they definitely want to keep him, or they would have cut him already. So the question is only, are they going to keep him while he's rehabbing? Because Pete said just this week that he's 3 or 4 weeks away from like running and starting to get back on to the team. So it's either they're going to keep him and not be able to use that spot, or they're going to put him on IR and then they'll sign be able to return him to the roster after 8 weeks. Those are the 2 options.
I mean, obviously they know more about his medical situation than we do, but like if it's just a thing where he's going to miss, 2, 3, 4 weeks, I would think they probably wouldn't do IR with him. I mean, I think you have the extra spot now, right? That for people that can return, 2 guys can return now, isn't that right?
Yes,
but that's still a limited thing, right? So I expect that we'll probably find out right away, right? Whether he's going to be back anytime soon. But if it's just a couple week thing, I would think they would just hold on to him and ride it out.
So in either way, unless George Fant's healthy this week, which they're hoping he can be, then you've got two guys that can play tight end coming into this game. So that's, you've got two guys who can play tight end. You may only have three guys that you really trust to play receiver, or even two guys potentially that know all the routes. Like, you could have a very limited set of options in your receiving group. So for those that are really hoping this is the game where the Seahawks break open their, newfound love of passing and really show a futuristic offense, this may not be the game you want to watch. I think there could be a lot of running the ball in this game.
It could also, obviously Shoddy says a lot of things that's not true, like we need to get John Brown more targets. But maybe he's telling the truth when it comes to running back targets, that they're going to, pass a bunch to Carson and Penny, and obviously Procise has that ability. So,
yeah. So, surprised on the Jacob Hollister thing. That was a bummer to me. I thought he was going to be a Ryan Hannum, which is before probably your time, Nathan, or not.
No, I know Hannum. Yeah.
No idea what you're talking about.
It's okay.
Band, movie, some old movie like Office Space. Who knows?
Did someone just say that the Clowney trade is official? Can any of you guys verify? I'm going to take a quick look. Why don't you guys look while I wait, sorry. Do you have something?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, while you look, I was actually I thought Saxton had a better chance of making the team than Hollister. I felt like he was the better overall player than Hollister had been in the preseason. So, obviously it's surprising that, I guess neither of them did, and Dixon might be hurt. Like you're saying, they're really low on tight ends. But, the Hollister thing just wasn't a surprise to me at all.
It is not official yet.
Yeah, I've not seen anything. So I'm waiting. Good news there, just for what it's worth. I'll get back to your comment in a second here, Nathan. But I am hoping that the Texans have more reason to pass our players through physical this time, because they've had to cut guys on the roster potentially to make space that they would have rather kept, and hopefully they'll just be trying to get this done. There is always the concern that they're going to screw us over somehow, but hopefully that doesn't happen. All right, let's keep going. Offensive line. So they got 9 guys. We've got the starters. We don't know if Upati's going to play this week. We don't know if Fant's going to play. You've got Jamarco Jones. You've got Ethan Posick, who's likely going to start over Upati at left guard. Joey Hunt makes it. Jordan Simmons goes on IR. Phil Haynes goes on PUP. Demetrius Knox is on IR. I didn't have any particular comments here. Anything from you guys?
This was expected. No big surprises here.
Yeah, I think it went as planned.
Marcus Martin. I thought Marcus Martin was a surprise.
Who did you think was going to make it instead, or did you have him keeping 10 offensive linemen?
I had him keeping 10.
Okay.
Yeah,
he was definitely, I think, the next guy. And maybe that's a good sign that they feel like Upati is going to play, or really, really close, and they don't need another guard. Who knows?
Yeah, because they have a few guys that can do a couple different things. Like Ifedi has played guard, and Posick kind of potentially could play any spot, really, maybe, as well as he can play any spot. But this is kind of light on guards, especially just true guards. And so I thought Martin might have made it. I thought Roos might have made it, and I thought maybe Hunt wouldn't have made it in place of one of those guys. I had him going 10, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about the guards. They've got Fluker or Upati that are true guards. You got Posick, who can play guard, but his best position is probably center. So that's 3. Hunt plays guard. He's played guard in live games. He started there at guard before, but he's definitely more of a center than a guard. So you are pretty thin there at guard. I think they're definitely counting on Phil Haynes coming back, but that's not for 6 weeks off of PUP. So,
and last year when I think it was Fluker that was hurt, Fetty just slid inside and Fant played right tackle. So that's an option too. So it's not like they're real thin there, but like outside of their two starters, they don't have anybody that's just a guard.
Well, they did say Joey Hunt had a high ankle sprain this past week. So he also may be out for a number of weeks. So, I mean, it is thin. The Jordan Simmons thing, that's too bad, but not that surprising. So generally, if guys are healthy, they should be all right. If they're not, they are thin. No doubt about it. Did you have something, Evan?
I just realized they cut Naz Jones. I'm sorry, it's moving on to the next position group.
Yes. Oh yeah, they did that a little while ago.
Wait, when did they do that?
They did that like yesterday or the day before.
But he's on IR, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So I can do this if it helps.
Perfect.
So on defensive line, you've got Ezekiel Ansah, Poona Ford. You've got Al Woods, who will be the starter with Jaron Reed out. Where is Jaron Reed on this list? Oh, he's here. Yes, he's on the suspended list. DeMarcus Christmas is on. I think he's on PUP. I think they kept him there. You've got Rasheem Green. You've got Cassius Marsh cut. How big of a surprise is this to you? Evan, we'll start with you.
Not that big of a surprise. I didn't they just like sign him to I'm just looking up his deal real quick. I'm pretty sure it had it did have $600K guaranteed.
It did.
Surprising. Wow.
I mean, they saved like a little over $1 million or something, right?
Yeah, they saved 1.25, but they basically paid $600K to have him on the roster from April 4th to today, which is fine. Good for him. But that's a surprise cut for sure. I'm surprised by that.
I was shocked. As shocked as you can be by a player like Marsh, of that caliber getting cut. They have two guys that look like a Leo or could potentially be a Leo. And one of them, we're waiting for the physical to pass in Clowney. And the other one, we're praying stays healthy in Ansah, right? And then after that, your ends are Rasheem Green and LJ Collier and Quentin Jefferson and Brandon Jackson. Maybe this will be fine. Cassius Marsh isn't great or anything, obviously. He has been a productive rotational pass rusher, and I thought he looked pretty good in the preseason. But if nothing else, I think this signifies maybe a change in what they're doing with their defense, just because they got real big at defensive end. And maybe it signifies what they think of Clowney. We talked about him earlier today as more of a Michael Bennett than a Cliff Averill. Maybe that's not what they think. Maybe they are seeing him more as an Averill than a Bennett or something like that. So they're not short on pass rushers necessarily. Ansah's good. They're great. Obviously, Clowney, great. But Green and Collier have a lot to prove, and they're just not that typical type. So this was really fascinating, if nothing else, to me. I was really, really surprised. Obviously, it's not the end of the world to lose someone like him, but I thought it was just super interesting.
Yeah, there's people that were pushing me about it earlier, like, oh, yeah, he's going to, don't count. Cassius Marsh is not a lock. And I have to admit, I thought they were totally foolish. I was like, he is starting at Leo with Ansah out and is playing a ton of snaps and is being productive. He was getting pressure in almost every game he played. He seems like the perfect rotational player. So I don't get it. To me, the question here is Rasheem Green is their third round pick from last year, who they're counting on, and has not developed. And I think he's pushing Marsh off the roster. And, we could look back in a year and say, man, Green isn't worth it. It's possible. I hope not. I'm not ready to give up on him, but he's definitely not had a good second training camp. This is a guy that we all were hoping was going to take a big step forward. He didn't. LJ Collier is a first-round pick. We don't know what we have in LJ Collier. And Pete was even clear that no one should expect him to come in and save the day. He doesn't, he's barely practiced. He might not play until for weeks, and he may not earn rotation snaps for weeks and weeks. You don't know. So really, you've got Quentin Jefferson, Rasheem Green, Ansah, Brandon Jackson, and Jadeveon Clowney. I am not a Brandon Jackson guy. I think he is just a guy, and I think Marsh is a much more accomplished pass rusher than Jackson. But they kept Jackson, so there you go.
I mean, Cassius Marsh is just Marsh. He's a rotational guy. I'm not comparing him to Clowney, but I'm going to compare him to Clowney and let you know that. I mean, their pressure rates are very similar over their career. I think 2 years ago, Clowney had a significantly better one, but other than that, they're pretty neck and neck. Marsh is a dude that had 7 sacks last year. That was, more than twice his previous high for a season, so could be fluky, but I don't know. I thought he was a really nice pickup for them. And yeah, just really surprised to see him go, and really interested if this signals something bigger for the defense and what they plan to do.
Do you have any ideas of what that would potentially be?
I mean, it almost looks 3-4-ish, Ansah's a bit of a oddball there if you do go to a 3-4, but you just look at the size that they have along the line, both at defensive end and at tackle. You look at how Clowney's been used in the past there in Houston. It wouldn't shock me now at this point if they do something significant and change how that front works.
Be interesting to watch. So let's move on.
Too is that they blitzed a ton in the preseason.
They
especially
did.
For the preseason, for themselves and for the preseason. And so, maybe there's something else going on there too.
It's true. Yeah, it was. I expected the reason they were blitzing was because they didn't have a line that was creating its own pressure, and that might change now if they've got Clowney and Ansah available to them. But who knows? They really like the linebackers, and they like how they pressure. So, and Clowney's a guy that can drop. I mean, that guy, he can move in space. So they can do some really interesting things with him once Pete gets his hands on him. So let's move on to the linebackers. This was a bit of a surprise. They kept 7. They kept Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Michael Kendricks. No surprises there. Cody Barton, no surprise there. They did keep Shaquem Griffin, Ben Burkervin, and Austin Calitro. I felt pretty confident they were going to keep Griffin if they felt like he could play and be healthy. I think he's one of, if not their best special teams player. So I've had him on the roster. Burkervin was a guy I didn't have making the team until this last game, but he played a great game. So Calitro's a guy I just don't think that highly of. And, he to me is like the backup quarterback situation. If he's playing, it's probably a bad thing. But I'm not upset that he's on the roster. I just, I'd rather have Cassius Marsh on the roster than Austin Calitro, personally. I know that's an unpopular take. Any thoughts on the linebackers that either you guys wanted to add?
I'm really happy to see him keep Griffin. Not only is he an awesome story, but he's a guy with a lot of talent. And, if he can figure it out, he still has a lot of upside. There's a lot of talented athletic guys that don't figure it out, and that's probably what will become of him. But I still think he has a shot to be a legitimate player in this league, and hopefully he can figure that out.
All right, so cornerback. We've got Shaquille Griffin, Trey Flowers, Akeem King, Nico Thorpe, another special teams guy. And they made a conditional 7th, it sounds like, for Perry Nickerson from the Jets. I don't know anything about Nickerson other than, he was a 2018, I think a 6th round pick. So they're getting him for a 7th a year later. Nickel corner, 5'10", he has 4.3 speed. So a super fast dude, 180 pounds. Definitely a nickel corner by Seahawks category. I believe Ugo Amadi is their nickel corner. And Perry Nickerson's a guy that they're going to see what they've got. And if he pans out during practice, fine. If not, they'll cut him and they'll get their 7th round pick back. Anything that you guys had on the corner position that you wanted to talk about?
The only thing I'd say is worth noting on the Perry Nickerson trade, we have club control on his rookie deal through 2021. Super cheap each year, 500, 600K. So there's no, big issues there. I'm excited about Akeem King. He's somebody that's kind of been floating around on the practice squad, getting some reps here and there, proving his worth in certain situations. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. It'd be cool to see him step into, or maybe even compete for a starting spot, honestly. I'd love to see him take Shaquille's job. And that's not rooting against Shaquille. It would just mean that King played really well. So I'm excited for King.
Yeah, I much more hope that Shaquille Griffin steps forward, but either one of them playing better than Shaquille played last year would be fine by me. Deshaun Shedd got cut. Some people were surprised by that. Jamar Taylor got cut. Some people were surprised by that. I felt like Jamar Taylor was one of the guys that made more plays than others during training camp and during preseason, but I don't think he ever played well. He never played that well. There's a few plays that really stood out. I was not surprised when they cut him. I really thought generally Pete's rule is if the younger player is even with the veteran, he's going to go with the younger player and assume that the younger player is going to accelerate in his development. I thought Amadi was roughly equivalent, if not better, and showed more things than Taylor. So I think it's, we talked about it. If we were hoping that Blair and Amadi would end up being starters come week one, assuming that Amadi is the starter, I might be wrong. Maybe Akeem King is the starter at nickel. Totally could be possible. But if Amadi is a starter, I think I'd be super excited. And I think he's a guy that can make some plays and really grow into a difference maker. I know you're on the Ugo Amadi hype train, Nathan.
I am. Yeah, I'm very excited about this. I thought Taylor was going to make it. I wonder if they're going to regret not keeping him. But this is a green light for Ugo, and I'm excited about that. In less important or interesting takes, it would be cool if Simeon Thomas made the practice squad. I don't know if he even has eligibility left. I think he's been floating around for a little while. But he was a guy that I kind of liked in the preseason. So he's one of the few guys that I care about whether he makes it to their practice squad. It would be cool to see him get there.
What stood out to you about him?
He's just that, prototypical Seahawk ball of clay, right? Like cornerback. So he's someone that could grow.
Yeah. Finally, other than the special teams, which we already know about, safeties, Bradley McDougald, Tedrick Thompson, Lano Hill, Marquise Blair, and Ugo Amadi, who is really a swing corner safety. I think we all believe probably Amadi's going to be used more as a corner now than as a safety, especially with Hill back. I didn't see any surprises there. Shalom Luani had some chance of making the team, but once Lano Hill got back, I think that became.
Was he the player we traded for a couple of years ago?
I think we might have one of these last, end of the right before the cut down deals,
like the Raiders, right?
Something like that. I think so.
It was like a late round pick, I think.
Yeah. And he's been a decent special teams player. But yeah, there was nothing too surprising there for me. So, as far as roster stuff goes, I'd say there were some decent surprises this year. Where you end up, I think you have to feel a little bit thin as on the wide receiver, tight end, and offensive guard spots. So I think those are the spots that the Seahawks are going to have to hope things work out. But other than that, there's a lot of guys that step forward, and I think it's an interesting group. So we'll find out hopefully maybe tonight, but maybe it'll be tomorrow morning, what happens with what will be their open roster spot. I think we can assume right now Geno Smith is going to be the guy that they re-sign once the Clowney trade goes through.
Fingers crossed.
Ooh.
Mingo, don't fail your physical, Mingo. I swear to God.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Jeremy Lane,
oh my God, if that third round pick becomes a second or something, I would just be so annoyed.
Can you imagine?
Fucking Texans. All right, so let's shift gears, guys. that is our roster reactions. Let's talk about predicting the 2019 season with what you know. Before we get into going game by game, give me a high level. Where do you feel best about this team, and where do you feel the most angst? Evan, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, where I used to have the most angst was really the defensive line in that front seven, but Clowney is a game changer. One of the best pass rushers in the NFL, one of the best edge rushers. You can move him inside. He's super, super impressive. You can't understate, or you can't overstate how critical his addition is. So I'm super excited about this front seven. All of a sudden, if the DBs can get their act together and really follow in Bradley McDougall's leadership, suddenly you could have a pretty good defense. I thought they were going to be like middle of the pack, but Adam Pete Carroll's coaching, this could be like a top 5 to 7 defense if all things click. And I don't think that's unrealistic, especially with Clowney in the fold. So I'm a lot more excited about the defense. I'm excited to see Clowney and Ansah and Collier basically wreak havoc on opposing quarterbacks. So super excited about that. Where I have the most angst, it's probably the receiver group with Jaron Brown being cut. We went through, that week 1 slate against the Bengals, and it's Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. You're hoping is healthy. It looks like he might be healthy for week 1, so cross your fingers for that. But if he's not, then all of a sudden you're working with Ursua, Malik Turner, and Gary Jennings, and that's not a good group or a deep group. So the receiver group is concerning, but if DK can get healthy, David Moore can get healthy, I'm fine with them.
Nathan, how about you? Strengths, weaknesses?
I still think the defense is a major weakness. They're putting a lot on Ziggy Ansah's health, and I just don't think there's any reason to think that's going to hold up. The DBs, I don't think Quill looked a ton better. We'll see what kind of step forward Flowers can make. But just like with Quill, right? He could just as easily take a step back. They likely haven't improved the safety spot opposite of Tedrick, opposite of McDougall. They still have Tedrick, who did not look particularly better. They have Blair, who's trying to learn. And so, yeah, Clowney is exciting, but they're still going to be without Reed for a while. They still have health questions with Ansah. We just talked about their kind of questionable pass rush depth. I think that defense, which was significantly worse than it looked last year, could be in for a lot of trouble. Obviously, they did a lot of you can't complain too much about the move that they made and what they tried to do and how they tried to help it, but I just don't think that it's going to put them anywhere near like a top 10 area, like you were saying, Evan. But, happy to be wrong about that. I feel good about quarterback. I feel good about offensive line. I feel pretty good there. I don't know. Outside of the defense, which, like I just said, I don't think is going to be, hugely better and the defense could be one of those where it technically improves, but like on paper or like in results actually takes a step back. But there's just a ton of question marks for me on this team. Like the running back situation with Procise, can he stay healthy? The receivers, like Evan said, and then everything on the defense, there's a lot of wait and see for me right now with this team.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel the same way on the defense. I look at the team last year defensively. Starting defensive line was like Shamar Stephen, and you had Frank Clark, which is great. I think Frank Clark and Ziggy Ansah, to me, if Ansah's healthy, that's the question. But he is looking like he's going to play, so let's assume that for a second. That's basically a trade, like a wash. I think Stephen, anyone that they're going to put in there, Poona Ford, I think is potentially an 8 or a 9 out of 10, and Shamar Stephen was like a 4 or a 5. So I think there's a massive step forward there. I think Al Woods is going to be there instead of Jaron Reed. And that's a question mark. But 2 years ago, I mean, when he was fully healthy playing for the Colts, he was Linval Joseph level in PFF ratings for interior linemen. Like he was really, really good. And I thought he's looked pretty good in this game. Or in this preseason. So I'm not as worried about Reed being out. I think he obviously is a difference maker, but he's going to come back after 6 games. And then you've got Clowney, who was opposite of Frank Clark last year? Quentin Jefferson, right? So, Quentin Jefferson's okay, but I think Clowney is a totally different beast than Quentin Jefferson. And then if you look at the nickel defensive line, the ability to actually have you could have someone like Clowney slide inside. You have Rasheem Green, who definitely can slide inside. That's where he prefers to rush. You've got LJ Collier, who may be there later. We'll find out what you have in him. But you've got Ansah and Clowney both rushing. I think that's better than what they had last year in those nickel situations. So I don't know. And then I think the linebackers are significantly better. Barkevious Mingo was playing Sam linebacker last year, and he was awful. Awful. I think Michael Kendricks is not only good, but I think he could be very good for them. And you didn't have KJ Wright playing almost the whole season. You had Austin Calitro playing almost the whole year. So I think the front 7 overall goes from what I would say was like a 5 last year to probably like an 8 to me, relatively speaking to some of those changes. I agree with you guys about the secondary. I have to see it to believe it in terms of improvement. Tedrick Thompson to me is no different than he was last year or the year before. He's just not a player. He's not a playmaker. He never has been, at least in the pros. Like Bradley McDougald, but Bradley McDougald might have played his best season last year. We'll see. And then you've got Shaquille Griffin and Trey Flowers, who, I've just never been super high on. Anyway, I think.
The one thing I would say there is Poona Ford is good and he's going to get more playing time. Yeah, Al Woods is a capable replacement for Jaron Reed. And yeah, now they have Clowney. But you're talking about 3 guys that are all vastly to at least somewhat better run defenders than pass rushers in front of a secondary that I don't know anyone feels super confident in. And so, yes, they are not, they're not a disaster. They may have a strength against the run, but they could still be awfully rough against the pass. And this was a team that, if you look at EPA or success rate or some of the other things, was far worse than even their kind of middling DVOA and points allowed kind of showed.
All right, fellas, we're gonna move this along a little bit and go into prediction rapid fire. And what we've got here is the schedule. Can you guys see this, or do you need me to make it bigger?
We've got it.
All right, so we're gonna rapid fire through this and see where we end up. I've got versus Cincinnati the first week. I've got that as a win. Let's make these all large enough so people can see.
Also a win here on that one.
Win, and Evan?
Win.
Pittsburgh, at Pittsburgh. Let's start with you, Evan. We're going to go snake style here.
Oh. Fuck it. It's a win.
I was going to feel bad saying loss, but if Evan had to think that hard about it, then yeah,
Loss. I'm going with win. New Orleans at home, 125 game. I'm gonna say at home. I'm going with win. Nathan.
A loss.
Loss. Evan.
Win.
Nathan or Evan at Arizona, Sunday at 1. Win. So first quarter of the season, we got 4-0. 2-2 and 4-0. This is going as
I'm not a
expected.
pessimist. I'm just realistic. It's you.
I know. Well, just
this is it. This is the microcosm of it.
there's some aspect of that, and then who was closer to being right on the prediction last year?
Yeah, but like by one game.
It was closer. I think Evan was closer. So
who's to say?
Versus the Rams at home Thursday night at 5:00. I am calling that a win. Nathan.
Loss.
Loss at home. Evan.
That's a loss.
Loss. That's because you're so infatuated with their coach. At Cleveland. Evan. 10 a.m. game.
It's going to be a loss.
Loss. Nathan.
I actually think they win this.
Win. I've got that as a loss. Home against Baltimore, 125 game. I've got that as a win.
Loss.
Loss. Evan.
Win.
At Atlanta, 10 a.m. game. Evan.
I think it's a loss.
Loss. Nathan.
Yeah, same here.
Loss. I've got that as a win. Versus Tampa Bay at home, I've got that as a win. Nathan. Yep. Win. Evan.
Win.
Home Monday Night Football against at San Francisco. Excuse me, at San Francisco.
That's a win.
Win.
Yep.
Nathan. Win. I'm gonna go with a surprising and frustrating loss. Bye week.
Have them like 9-2 right now.
I do.
Okay.
Bye week, and by the way, so with Jaron Reed out, I've got them at 5-1. Nathan's got them at 3-3, and Evan's got them at 4-2. Okay. At Philadelphia, Sunday night at 5. I've got that as a loss. Nathan. Win. Interesting. Evan.
I think it's a win also.
Win. Okay. Home Monday night against Minnesota. Win.
That's a win. Yeah.
Nathan.
Win.
Win. I've got that as a win. At the Rams, Sunday night football. I've got that as a loss. Nathan.
A loss. Yep.
Win.
So Evan's got the Seahawks as 1-1 against the Rams. Nathan has got the Seahawks as 0-2 against the Rams. I have them as 1-1. Interesting. All right. Carolina, at Carolina, 10 a.m. game. Evan.
Win.
Nathan.
Win.
I've got that as a win as well. Versus Arizona at home, I've got that as a win. Win. Evan.
Win.
Final game at home versus San Francisco.
Win.
Yep.
Win. All right. So what does that end up with? I've got 12-4.
Pretty good. 12-4 would be pretty good.
Let's make that bigger. 12-4. Nathan, you've got them at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got them as 10-6.
Yep.
13-3.
You've got
13-3.
13-3. I thought I was ending up with the most optimistic. Look at you look at this end of the season win streak that Evan's got them on. Holy crap.
I do think they lose at Cleveland, though. I think that's going to be a downer of a game.
It's tough. It's really tough. I have to say I feel more confident if you got Jadeveon Clowney coming off the edge, but yeah. So I don't. It's an issue that there's pretty decent spread, and this is pretty optimistic for you, Mr. Ernst.
I mean, I had them about 9-7. I had them a 9-1 team before the Clowney thing, so feels right. I mean, and there's toss-ups, right? Like the Cleveland, the Philly, the Minnesota, those all feel kind of like toss-ups to me, and you never know if they steal a game from the Rams or something like that. I guess the 4 toss-ups, the ones that are probably going to decide the seasons, to me feels like New Orleans, Philly, Minnesota, and Cleveland. Those are probably the 4 to me that if they can, steal those 4, then I really could see that, 12-4. Do you have them winning all those? You don't have them going 2-2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are tough games. I think it's the division games that really are going to make it. I mean, that sounds obvious, but I think that's the make or break. And they were so close to the Rams last year. I think the Rams are worse than they were last year. And I think the Seahawks are meaningfully better in a lot of important areas than they were last year. It would be hard for me. I don't want to believe that they're going to go 0-2 against the Rams this year. And if they can go 1-1 even against the Rams, I think that, I think they're definitely going to go 2-0 against the Cardinals. And then, I've got them as one against San Francisco. Like, they lost to San Francisco last year with, like, Nick Mullins at quarterback. So I'm just picking that because there's always one where you're just, like, so pissed off. How did they lose that? But if they can go 4-2 in the division, I think that they really have a good shot at getting a bye.
We're taking the NFC West back.
Yeah, which games were the hardest for you, Evan? Real quick.
The LA games for sure. I had them losing at home versus the Rams, but I have them, redeeming themselves later in the season in LA. Those are the toughest games, but I think they probably split.
I think that's fair though too, because LA has a crap home field advantage. I mean, it's not like a big difference there. It is going to be, the reason I have that as an L is because it's a primetime game, and I just, it's hard to beat teams in the primetime away. But I mean, look, I think Carolina is always potentially tough.
They've had some bad games against Minnesota. Like, I don't think
Minnesota's really good.
Yeah.
We don't have them winning that game, but it's a primetime game at home. If it wasn't, maybe we'd feel a little different.
Wasn't the one last year a primetime game at home? Did they win? I don't remember if they beat the
They did. They did.
But it was ugly as hell. So, I mean, Russ was terrible in that game. I feel like he also they blew Minnesota out a couple years ago, like 2015 or whatever, but I feel like it's been kind of up and down since then.
Yeah. So, only other ones, I mean, the ones that I was a little, like, Atlanta, I don't know that Atlanta's very good. I'm not sure on that one. So maybe I'll feel differently, especially, early morning game and all that. But New Orleans and Pittsburgh were the toughest for me. At Pittsburgh, I mean, that is a tough place to win. Second week of the season, absolutely could see them drop that game. And then New Orleans, I have a ton of respect for. I just don't know that this team's going to lose at home very often. I mean, one of the things I saw, Nathan, is you've got 1, 2, 3. You've got 3 home losses. So you've got them going 5-3 at home. That feels really conservative.
Did I say loss on Baltimore?
You did.
Oh, I actually feel like they match up well against Baltimore. I don't know why I said loss. I think that's probably it? Yeah, sure.
All right, look at Nathan moving up to 11-5.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That is pretty. I mean,
I don't like that.
Seahawks Twitter should be really feeling pretty good if Nathan's at 11-5, because that's usually the floor for the team. Whatever Nathan's going to predict.
Yeah, I really don't feel comfortable with this.
So now you've got them at 6-2. That feels more realistic. I've got them. I don't have them losing at home, which seems a little optimistic, to be honest. I don't know if they're an 8-0 home team, maybe 7-1, and that would be where New Orleans, Minnesota, LA, any of those teams could definitely be a team that picks up a game in Seattle. And just last thing we'll look here. Evan, you have at home you have 1 loss at home. So you got them as a 7-1 team at home. All right. So fellas, last thing before we go. So where do you think they end up? Where's the final game that they play in to end this season?
I have no idea.
Where's the next Super Bowl hosted?
You could just pick which round you'd like to say. So you're saying Super Bowl?
I think they make a deep playoff run. It could be NFC Championship.
No, you got to be more specific, dude. Call it.
NFC Championship.
NFC Championship. All right. I've got. I'm going to do the same. That's where I've got them. Nathan, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're good enough to win a playoff game. I think at 11-5, they're probably a wild card team, so divisional.
All right, so none of us are going out on a limb with any Super Bowl predictions. I thought we might get one from you, Evan, but that's okay. So, all right, fellas.
I'm predicting that the Seahawks are going to lose their first. Wait, will this be the first time? Didn't they, or did they lose one like back in the 30s or something? An NFC championship?
No, they've never lost an NFC championship, and
wow, such pessimism coming from Evan to say that they're going to lose their first ever NFC championship game this year.
Unfortunately, I'm just consistently realistic. So.
All right, fellas. If this is the season, it seems like it's going to be a fun one. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us reviews. Give us thumbs up. Go on iTunes. Give us reviews. 5 stars, please. Would be great. And let us know if there's a reason it's not. And then absolutely join up at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Our insiders are going to have a lot of fun this season, and you're going to help the show. We have some ideas about how to create pregame content. We've got some other video projects in mind, but we've got to raise money in order to pay guys like Cable Thanos and Will and other guys who they got day jobs. So we got to find ways to make this worth their while. So please sign up, help support the show, and go Hawks.